Welcome to episode 29 of the Perrysburg Podcast. I'm your host and Perrysburg resident, Kim Newlove. I am starting a newsletter for the Perrysburg Podcast, and that's what we're talking about today. If you are new to this podcast, welcome. The Perrysburg Podcast is an informational podcast for prospective, new, and current Perrysburg, Ohio residents. We talk about what's in Perrysburg and why people like to live here. You can find the show notes for this episode on perrysburgpodcast.com. Just click on episode 29. When I launched the Perrysburg Podcast back in July of 2023, I created a website that collects emails. Why collect emails? It's so I can start a newsletter and send it to my email list. The newsletter will start next month in March of 2024. The purpose of this episode is simply to invite you to sign up for the newsletter. Very short episode. Go to perrysburgpodcast.com, find the section labeled Join the Email List, and sign up today. What will be in the newsletter? I am a very direct person, and I do not like to bury the lead, so each newsletter will be very short. As far as content, 3 things come to mind. Number 1, an announcement about each new episode and what it's about. Number 2, important links. The important links are always in the show notes, but let's face it, podcasts are audio, and anybody who's busy enough to listen to a podcast may be too busy to read the show notes too. So the newsletter fills that gap. And number 3, the newsletter will allow me to make announcements. Announcements about events that I'll be at or upcoming podcast episodes and guests. For example, I am working on scheduling a talk about podcasting at Way Public Library for summer 2024. And I also hope to teach another Podcasting 101 class at the 577 Foundation in the fall. I taught one last fall in September. It went great. I'd love to do it again. As for upcoming episodes, some examples will be Katie Thomas, who's from the Ability Center, and Justin Marchand, who's a local musician. That's it. That's what you can expect from the newsletter as I get it started here in March 2024. Announcements about new episodes, links from episodes, and upcoming events, topics, and guests. I hope that helps, and please go ahead and sign up for the Perrysburg Podcast newsletter. Join the email list today. That's all I've got for you today. This was a short episode, might be the shortest episode since the trailer back in July. I just wanted to dedicate an entire episode to the newsletter. Thanks for listening to episode 29 of the Perrysburg Podcast. Please visit perrysburgpodcast.com to sign up for the newsletter and read the show notes. There's not much in the show notes today, but again, you can find the show notes for episode 29 on perrysburgpodcast.com. If you know someone in Perrysburg who likes local podcasts, please share this episode with them and subscribe to or follow the Perrysburg Podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Next week, we're talking about places of worship in Perrysburg. Just like on episode 7, which was about parks in Perrysburg, this will be the first of many episodes about places of worship in Perrysburg. It will not be a giant series back-to-back. I will sprinkle the episodes throughout this podcast as time goes on. Thanks for listening today. I'll talk to you next week.